Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Coffee with the Critters, where I live stream every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. And today we have a guest on, so we are going to run for a half an hour. Is that okay with you, Emily? Okay. Emily's in the lobby waiting. I'm just going to show a couple of screenshots real quick. For those that may be new, my name is Laura Joseph, owner of the Animal Behavior Center. We're an international educational center where we teach people all over the world how to understand the science of behavior known as applied behavior analysis. And we do that through our work with animals, particularly exotics. And you can find out more on our website at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. And you can always feel free to contact me at Lara, at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. So, let's go ahead and introduce, I'm going to bring Emily Cassell on. Here she comes in 1 second. Good morning,
Morning.
Emily. Thank
Good
you.
morning.
Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for
Um,
having me.
yeah, absolutely. I've had you on before. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And the reason I picked you to come on here for numerous reasons, because I've had you on here before. I know the work you do. We've spoke together at, well, not together, but at the same conference before in the past. And I support the work that you do. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and read your bio for everybody who may not be familiar with you. So Emily is a behavior consultant and co-founder of Empowered Animals Behavior and Training, where she provides training services for both animals and the people who care for them. After over a decade of zookeeper working primarily with primates and tigers, she transitioned to dedicating her full focus to empowered animals, which she co-founded with her sister Lizzie, a board-certified behavior analyst. I love this. Um, Much of Emily's work now focuses on helping humans understand their pets' behavior, and together she and Lizzie provide education for human teams that work with animals. She has a special interest in rabbit behavior and has worked with pet owners, rescues, and shelter staff to understand these commonly kept but little understood pets. She has written various articles for the Pet Professional Guild and International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants on rabbit behavior and training. She has also presented on various training and behavior topics for the Pet Professional Guild, Animal Behavior Management Alliance, Florida Association of Zoos and Aquariums, Tampa Bay Bun Fest, and the Orangutan Husbandry Conference. So, welcome, Emily.
Thank you.
So, okay, I know I just had several episodes of Coffee with the Critters over the past and a half on enrichment. What is enrichment? And I really wanted people to understand what they're looking at, whether this is in zoos, educational facilities, in their home. I wanted people to understand what an enriched animal looks like, areas of behavior concern where I'm thinking there's serious lack of enrichment. A lot of people do not understand what they're looking at. And enrichment has become a hot topic, I'd say, over the past 10 years. But it's always been such an important topic and a necessity for animals, and a lot of times, and I still think it's overlooked,
Yeah.
especially individualized enrichment focused on modifying behavior concerns. So I know you're really big into enrichment. Um, and I know training is a big form of enrichment. That's why I train.
Yep.
Um, do you have any input, anything you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I think, enrichment can really be looked at as in a variety of ways. A lot of people, when they think of enrichment, they just think of offering an animal an item or a puzzle. And so often I see this with my my pet dog owners, where I go in and kind of what I'm really looking at is assessing needs. What needs are met and what needs are unmet by the animal's environment. And when I say environment, of course, I'm including every aspect of that environment, including the interactions with the pet owner, because for a pet dog that has been domesticated and has so many things that are natural behaviors for them, where they are looking to get some of their social needs met from people. It's really important to look at that environment and see what needs are met, what needs are not met. And oftentimes, when I go into pet homes and we talk about enrichment, I hear a lot of, well, they don't like toys. They don't like to play with toys. Or people show me, one of the common, plastic dog puzzles that the dog can solve in 5 seconds. And they're like, we do enrichment here. So it tends to be something that is common and people are really trying across the board in zoos and in pet homes. I love seeing more of these things readily available. When I first started training, I mean, a dog puzzle was the muffin tin toy that you had to make yourself with a muffin tin and tennis balls and treats. And now you can go, I mean, first just to PetSmart or these places that are specialized for pets, but even just like places like Ross and TJ Maxx now are selling enrichment items. So
Good.
it's definitely getting more prominent, but I think there still is a lack of information about what it really means to enrich an animal.
Yeah, and a lot of times, well, let's define enrichment, how we look at enrichment. I call it an arousal of the senses. I'm also looking at, is the animal learning from it? And a lot of times, like you said, with the dogs, with the plastic puzzle feeder, they have it solved in 5 seconds.
Hmm.
And studies show that with predictability comes boredom. So a lot of times people will think that if they just provide that plastic puzzle feeder once a day, if they're lucky, that
Check.
that's enough.
Yeah, the box
Yeah,
is checked.
yeah.
Enriched. Yeah.
So I know we're talking right now, in one of our memberships, I'm showing a foraging device, and I'm saying, now let's make it more complex. Let's start taking this one object and increase the complexity. And we are taking that object and just increasing it tenfold to show people not only do you need to provide enrichment, but shaping the animal's engagement, how the duration, how long it takes the animal, and to keep learning from that one piece of enrichment. But it's not just limited to that one piece. We can provide numerous different types of enrichment all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that I really advocate for my pet dog owners, and we work with a lot of people that are very busy. We really like to work with busy families because we are a busy family, and people a lot of times are overwhelmed by the concept of enrichment and what it has to be. And thinking that it needs to, I think there's a point when in the learning curve of enrichment where once people start to understand what it is, there's almost like an analysis paralysis of like, I could never, I could never keep up with what the animal needs, and I could never have enough devices, um, or I can't meet those complexity needs. And there's actually a lot in the environment that is really tangible. For animals, particularly, in the case again of my dog owners, like everybody has a dog, so a variety of people with different activities, and I will use a very workplace term, time budgets, are concerned that they're not going to be able to meet those needs. But one of the biggest things I look for in dogs is really their engagement with their nose, and a lot of people assume that dogs just like they can smell, so they're good at finding things with their nose. And I cannot tell you how many times I scatter hot dogs on the ground and the dog finds, 5 out of 8 and then looks up at me surrounded by treats and is like, I got them all. Do you have more? And so something as simple as just teaching them, they call it like the splatter radius, where I have like a high density in a small area, and then we gradually increase it. That is increasing complexity, and shifting from things like, for a lot of my dogs, they have to learn how to find, like, I have to use a highly contrasted treat on on the ground that contrasts with the visual of it, because they haven't engaged their nose and they're using their eyes to find the treats. And so something as simple as, hot dogs on the asphalt transferred to hot dogs on astroturf, like, can be a mind blower if you haven't increased it. But that's a really small and easy way for people to enhance complexity for that animal to learn. And then I think the coolest thing for dog people is to watch their dogs do it, and they have to trust them because we can't smell where the things are. So they have to watch them work. Where are the treats? And I was just doing this last week with a really a nervous little guy, and we were scattering them in a rock bed, because they had a little gravel rock bed out front. So it was difficult for him to see the treats, and the owners were so excited watching it get harder and harder, and watching their dog. I mean, the dog was a natural, but I always equate it to people think that their dog is naturally going to get it. And although we are a visual species, we look for things with our eyes. I always equate it to like bird watching, where you can go out with somebody who's a birder and they're going to spot things in the trees that you can't spot. And it's not because anyone's vision is better. It's just because one is more practiced at finding those things than another person. And dog noses are really no different. So enrichment doesn't have to be time consuming for the person. It can be super accessible and easy and still have an impact. So if we shift our perception of it to, from that it has to be difficult to just that the needs have to be met, and we look at the animal's behavior after the fact, and we can see that.
Yeah, and we can learn so much about behavior through observing the animal with the enrichment. And the
Yes.
more variety we provide in enrichment for the animal, the more I mean, and I can't tell you how many times, and I'm always watching for this, how many times I'm like, well, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy the
Well,
stuff
that's
they come
kinda
up with.
cool. Yeah, so, Emily and I both have photos to show you, and for some reason, that's why we were a little late getting started, is I had technical difficulties getting Emily's, photos uploaded, so you're gonna provide those in the chat, right?
Yes, I did take a look at it while I was in the lobby. It does look like, um, I cannot provide them in the chat for whatever reason.
Okay,
Like, I can comment with like emojis and uh,
okay, well,
uh,
and I apologize for that, Emily,
oh, no worries.
I can get them uploaded, or you can even upload them after the live stream is over. Because one of the things I do as soon as the live stream is over is I'll go back and go through the feed and read and comment, so maybe you can upload some of these photos
Yeah,
as we talk about them. Something and I'll show, because I know you had one of your fish too, and I was like,
I
"Yes!"
know. I know.
So I will show these 2 photos that I took of Stan this week, and what I'm looking at through these 2 photos. So I'm providing what I'm actually doing is, back chaining and shaping levels of complexity with a enrichment device that, I am incorporating into Stan's tank to help prevent, a potential behavior issue turning into an abnormal repetitive behavior to help prevent any type of medical condition. So one thing I loved about this photo is I'm sitting there watching Stan interact with this very minor, very simple piece of enrichment, but I'm watching how his eye is moving.
Yeah.
So I can tell what he looks like when he's looking at something in particular. And I need to know that through trying to understand his behavior. And here he is. swimming around the top of it, and you can tell. I can see his eyes moving, so I want to know exactly what he's looking at. And because we can better tell when an animal is interested, when they're showing anticipatory behavior, when they're showing signs of fear, or if we don't know what signs of fear like look like, we can learn what that looks like through maybe um, accidentally providing enrichment that they're fearful of because they do not understand what it is. So you gave me a photo of that. Was that your fish?
Yeah, was Russell.
Yeah. Next to a
He was
glass of
next to,
pop.
yeah, it was a Coke in a glass that somebody had set on the shelf next to him, and I came in the room and saw him staring intently at the water line of the soda in the glass, and just again like something where you just don't realize what intrigues an animal. That was not something that I incorporated. I did a lot of visual enrichment for him, knowing obviously there are a lot of fish and animals that live underwater will communicate with visual things. And so I provided a lot of colorful different enrichment for him, and I never suspected that soda in a glass with ice was going to be something that would um, just hold his attention for so long. So I incorporated it into into something that I offered regularly.
So what was he interested in? The ice cubes?
It's, I think, just like the line, like where the water started. Like he just was staring and leveling himself with the water line there and just kind of really, and it wasn't moving or anything. I just happened upon him just enraptured by the Diet Coke in the glass. So just kind of, I shared it as just like an example of where sometimes you just don't even know what can be enrichment for animals, and it can just, they're really watching and paying attention to everything in the environment. And a lot of
And
people,
learning from it.
yeah, a lot of people, are they have a misconception about fish and their intelligence and everything. And as I'm sure, preaching to the choir here, that animals really tell you how smart they are the more you start to talk with them through behavior and through training. And I don't think there's any animal out there that's unintelligent. There's just, are we, like the Franz de Waal book, are we smart enough to know how smart animals are? And Russ was insanely intelligent and creative. And I learned all of that through training and trying to interact with him. But I think because the medium, the water is so foreign to us, and the behavior of the animals is so something we just don't recognize in any part of ourselves as humans. We just taken a step, or not even a step back. We've just never even taken that step forward to say, can I communicate with you? Can I talk with you? Can I learn about you? Do you want to learn, about me? And I think that's why people are so just, stagger backwards when you train fish. Cause as I'm sure, as I'm sure you've experienced with Stan, they're so smart. They're not terribly difficult to train.
Huh.
They want to work.
And you said people may not just think about enriching fish because they're not familiar with the medium of water. I think that's true a lot with people with birds because they're not familiar with the locomotion of flight and how flight
Yeah.
works. But when I first started training Stan, I was like, "Oh my god, he got this target like so fast." But Stan's not the first fish I've trained. Um, but when I first started training fish, I was just like, if you've learned that quickly and you understand these contingencies, meaning if I touch this, then this happens, that's a form of manipulation, manipulating the environment to get what they want. That's when I started looking at the pond thinking, well, this is really boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you understood that this quick, swimming around in a circle around waters and through little caves has got to get pretty boring pretty fast. And that's just me assuming I know what they're thinking based on the little interaction I've had with them. If I really understood them by being another fish, I would know how much I do not know.
Yeah. that's that's the curse, isn't it? The more you learn, the less you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So based on you talking about Stan, this I just wanted to pop up some more visuals. I am a huge alligator fan.
Yeah.
And I am a huge alligator fan because I never knew anything about them. And I started understanding them when I started training them. And when I started training them and see all they knew and understood and providing enrichment to them and seeing how they would interact, um, I like to represent the underdogs of the animal world, to say, look at this, look what this animal
Right.
does. And all I'm trying to do is provide some kind of segue between the animal world and the people world to show them, look, this, I would just wish we had more time and intelligence to understand exactly what these animals need. But this was Elvis with an ice cube. And how I learned more about his behavior by providing these big blocks of ice was I would watch how he would, I don't want to say hunt, but how he would go after it. And I was trying to, what's he going to do when he gets it in his mouth? What does it look like right before? How does he approach that piece of enrichment before he does actually try to get it in his mouth? And then Bruce with the waterfall. Um, he,
Oh,
and then we learned about Bruce interacting with the waterfall by cleaning his pond every week. So then we provided it to the big gators, and they would interact with it as well. And I took this photo particularly because I saw this flower drop into Elvis's pond right next to him, and I was like, and I always knew about those ISOs, these integumentary sensory organs, where they feel vibration. But I'm like, what's he gonna do when that flower hits his mouth? Because there's a part of a gator that I always stay out of because it's kind of like their strike zone. If
yeah.
they feel anything, whether they like you or not, is he still going to strike once this item comes in that area? And so I watched that flower hit his mouth, and I was just like, how is he going to react? And he just sat there, and then all of a sudden he went, "Clump," and it was gone.
Oh,
But it was a way for me to learn about behavior, especially from an animal that I would say has less, what are the words I'm looking for? They can't put their ears up. They can't put their ears down.
yeah.
So I can understand, oh, are you concerned? Are you scared? You don't like this? They don't have that. But
You don't have as
it's,
much to read.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, but their eyes do move. And I want to know, and their head moves when they want to focus in on something a little more. I want to know what that looks like. So that's why I watch these animals with enrichment.
Yeah, and it's so cool to think too. I mean, we don't have with some of these guys, we don't have as much to read, but but we know there's other things going on. Like if they have all those senses there, it's obviously for perceiving touch and some and other stimuli. So as much as we can, we can watch like the eyes and maybe that, maybe the rest of the body, but you can still probably have seen there was so much perception and just thinking while he was perceiving that. And I wonder if that had anything to do with the time delay. Like, was he trying to learn and gather sensory information about the flower before he, was like, because he knew once he had it, it was gone. And that was the last chance he was gonna, that was almost like his last thing he was gonna try was to snap it and learn about it that way.
Yeah, and I did have cameras on these 2 gators at night, and I kept the footage of what would happen when it was dark out, what nobody when nobody was around, and what I saw in these gators, I was like, "I can't believe I'm seeing this from a couple of gators. This is amazing," and it's one of the reasons, many reasons why I adore the species.
Yeah, it's so so neat, and it's, just like you said, we don't have as much to read, and it can be so foreign to us to connect with these animals. And working in a zoo environment, that's one of the things that's great about enrichment is it can help people connect with animals that otherwise they can't, because as or they don't, or are less likely to. And maybe have some empathy and maybe think twice about how you perceive them and how you interact with them in multiple ways throughout your life. I mean, we've got gators all over the place down here in Florida, and nobody thinks that they're highly intelligent, but they are, and we know this. I, and the way people perceive them, we have there's gator hunting and there's bear hunting, and when those seasons go up, there's a really big difference in how people perceive those two things. People don't think twice about the Burmese python roundups we have down here, but people will buy bear tags so that hunters can't buy bear tags down here when bear season is up, and
Oh,
it's because people don't want the bears to be killed, but people don't think that about the reptiles. Um, and certainly, Burmese pythons have had a massive negative impact on our ecosystem down here. But it doesn't mean that they're not animals that probably are very intelligent and thinking, and they still have. We just haven't been able to see it yet. And that's about our shortcomings, not theirs.
yep, exactly,
And
exactly.
I've been really, there's a Facebook page called Reptelligence or Reptiligence or something, and it's about reptile enrichment. And they do a lot of stuff with snakes, which is really neat to see, because I don't think there's many things that are more foreign or unrecognizable to us than snakes and their behavior. So to get to watch them do some of the things and watch how they solve problems is really fascinating. And I think that's one of the maybe like the higher goals of enrichment, especially when it comes to zoo animals, is helping people to connect so that they are interested in conservation, saving them, instead of just being like, yes, it's nice in an exhibitor. Ooh, that scares me. I'm glad there's a glass there. And,
Yeah.
walking, moving on.
Yeah, because conservation is key, and I think a lot of us enter conservation second, not because we come out interested in conservation. We I have found that a lot of people find a particular animal they're interested in, and then they learn more about it, and then they learn more. Then they become interested in conservation. How do we keep these animals alive in the wild? You know?
Yeah, that's exactly how I got into orangutans. I mean, when I was starting my career, I didn't really care what I trained, but I knew I wanted to train, and I just didn't want to do great apes or dogs. So here I am. Um, um, because I thought, I want to train animals, and apes are too much like people. And when you train dogs, you mostly are training the people, which is what I absolutely love now. But my entry level job, I had I would occasionally help out with the orangutans. And I didn't know anything about the palm oil crisis. I didn't know anything about, the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, or the plight of orangutans or the rainforests in Borneo and Sumatra. And now it comes up almost every time I do anything like this. Anything like this is conserving the orangutans, and it, like you said, it becomes a secondary, right? Like once I connected with the individual orangutans, then conservation of them became really important.
Um, well, I know this half hour flies.
Yeah, it does.
It flew. Let's wrap it up with a couple things we want to finish saying. I'd like to show this last, 2 photos because I think it's gonna be a, lack of better terms, an eye opener. Um, when we observe an animal through their enrichment, this is Sam, our blue-fronted Amazon who passed away in 2019. Um, he has no eyes. And there were so many limitations set on him because he's a fully flighted bird who has no eyes. This is a photo of him outside of his enclosure on his station and also interacting with enrichment. And instead of saying this is what we he can't do because he can't see through enrichment, I was like, look at what he's doing, look at what he's going after. And so then that's when I started the training. Here's an Amazon that I'm teaching to step onto a dowel,
It's
to
amazing.
step away from his cage. So I want to end on that and get your thoughts as well, on how enrichment can empower the hell out of animals and take them from what we see as very fearful to very confident.
Yeah, that's going to be such a fun ending place. One of the photos that we weren't able to share is actually of a bunny at Best Friends Animal Society, which is where we met each other.
Yep.
um, and I've been working with them with this rabbit who they said we don't think we're going to be able to adopt him. He's terrified of everything. We have him on some behavior medications. It really hasn't made a difference. And they said the only time he's seemed or when he seems happiest is when he was in an area that they felt was very quiet and not a lot of activity. So my perception of that was, he really just couldn't handle enrichment, and anything going into his environment was causing extreme maladaptive levels of fear. So I started to work with the bunny house caretaker with him specifically, and we started with training, and we started with offering enrichment, and now he's blossomed where he's interacting with other caretakers. He's in the superhighway where they have the bunny house tours. He's bonded with a little girlfriend named Thumbelina, and he is just doing fantastic. And all of that was from daily training where literally all the caretakers had to do was anytime they walked by, we had, again, because a lot of our training is human focused, they're run on volunteers. They don't have a lot of people. They pinned some dried flowers to his pen so that anytime somebody walked by, they would just pick them up, sprinkle them on in his foraging mat that he had in there. Grazing is a supernatural behavior for bunnies, and engaging the nose again. The seeking system of the brain can't be active with the fear stress part of the brain. So just kind of keeping him engaged, using his nose, which bunnies also are very olfactory based, really helped to build his confidence, and engaging with enrichment and achieving positive results from the environment through his own behavior empowered him to now where he has a much better and more robust life as a result.
And yep, and that's what it all comes down.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of us want.
Yes.
In the end, that's what a lot of us want. Um, well, with that being said, I think this is a great place for us to wrap up this live stream.
Yeah.
Do you mind going on the live stream on the page and uploading those photos?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I would love to have you on here again. We're already over our half hour, so we can see how fast that just when we're having time flies when we're having fun.
I know. Well, when you said a half hour, I was like, between you and me, I don't know that we can do a half hour.
I know.
So,
I know.
but
But oh, I wanted before we go, I wanted to mention that everybody, if you want to follow the work that Emily does, Emily and your sister Lizzie.
Mhm.
You can find more information about them on their website at empoweredanimalsbehaviorandtraining.com. You can also follow their work on Facebook and Instagram.
Yep.
So I know I follow you on Facebook. Um, I would love to have you back on again if you would like to come on.
Oh, anytime, Laura. Anytime.
Okay, perfect. Well, with that being said, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Emily. And I will see everybody next Sunday on the next episode of Coffee with the Critters.
All right. See ya. Thank you.